Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our AROHE webinar. My name is Bill Verdini, and I'm representing Arizona State University Emeritus College. That's where I come from. Today, we're having a question and answer session. And in order to facilitate that, you can either raise your hand or you can use the chat window. Now, I can tell you what it looks like on my screen, but depending on whether you're using a PC, an iPad, a phone, it might be in a little different spot. But if you find the chat box, you can either chat, I'll be monitoring that, or in the participant panel, so somewhere on your screen, there will be a couple of little heads sitting up that says participant underneath it. And if you click on that, a panel will open that shows all the participant names. At the bottom of that panel is a little raise hand icon. And if you click that, I'll be able to see it also. And that's how you can let us know that you'd like to ask a question. So with that, any quick questions from anybody about that? I'm looking, don't see any hands. Okay, with that then, I will let our stars of the show today introduce themselves. So Sue and Janette.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sue Barnes. I am currently serving as the interim executive director for AROHE. I've been involved with AROHE in various capacities on the board, including as president for about 11 years. I am a relatively new retiree. I retired in July of 2019. And before I retired, I worked for the University of California, 22 years at UC Davis and 3 years at UCLA. And for the last 7 years of my career, I was the director of the retiree centers at both of those campuses. So I have quite a bit of experience working with retiree groups. Janette?
Good morning, everyone. Janette Brown. I am from the University of Southern California, and I inherited the executive directorship of AROHE back in 2005, and did that for quite a while I was heading up the USC Emeriti Center. And I cannot say enough about Sue, because Sue joined AROHE and she really helped me out a lot in the role of executive directorship years before she took on this position. She's done a wonderful job. I've worked at the university for 25 years, and I've worked at the Emeriti Center for 15.
We have collected a few questions that people have asked beforehand, so we'll begin with that. Once again, though, if along the way you have a question or want a clarification, or would like to make a comment, please chat or raise your hand, and I'll try to let you in.
Great.
So our first question that we'll begin with is, how can we increase membership?
Okay, I'll take that one to start, Bill. First, I want to say that not everyone on this call represents a membership organization, and we understand that. But most of AROHE members are dues-paying membership organizations. So literally, this is the most common question we ever get, is how do we increase and retain our membership? One thing I will say before I talk about serving members is a lot of the things we're going to talk about in this question applies whether people are members or not, whether you have a membership organization or not. And some of our organizations have been experimenting with universal membership, which means that all retirees at their university automatically become a member of their organization, and they do not charge dues, but they instead ask for solicitations, usually on an annual basis or at their events. And the few organizations that have tried that thus far have reported that they collect as much money in donations or more than they used to in dues. So that's something just to keep in mind and explore if you are wanting to do that. So then a little bit of a perspective on membership. Membership recruitment is a universal issue for all organizations. It's the most common problem that organizations list. And for organizations that serve older adults, it's a particularly challenging issue because the world is changing and membership dues paying organizations literally are on the decline. And so it takes a lot of effort on the part of an association. There's no magic answer, but we will talk about some ideas here today that can help you. I also want to put in perspective the typical membership rates we see among retirement organizations, which for eligible staff typically is about 10% of the staff. So if you have, for example, 1,000 retirees on your campus and you have 100 members at your organization, you're doing pretty darn well. For emeriti associations, it's typically higher, and we usually see about 40 to 60% of eligible emeriti or retired faculty will join their respective association. So I think that just puts it in perspective because I think that you have to set realistic expectations about what you'll expect for your membership levels. So then what's the key to attracting members? The key to attracting members is the benefits that you offer them. Really, can you solve a problem for them or can you fill a need for them? And the common problems and needs that we hear from retirees are that they want to stay connected with campus life and with other retirees. They want to stay abreast of campus developments. Oh, and I should have said, I'm going to send you the bullet point notes of our comments so you don't need to take copious notes. I see people writing, and I'll give you a break. You can listen. They want to develop a social circle, and they want to continue lifelong education, and they want to learn about resources, both on campus and off campus, that may help them as they age. So the key really to membership is finding out what your members want, but also what your non-members want. That's a little more challenging because sometimes we have a hard time reaching non-members, and we'll talk about that a little bit in this webinar about how you can do that. But you can do several things. You can survey them, a standard email survey or a paper survey. Most people are doing email surveys now, generally using SurveyMonkey. You can also use Qualtrics. You can call them, which seems time consuming, and it is, but sometimes you get better information from people by talking to them than by doing a survey. And right now, because we're not able to do a lot of in-person events, some of our board members have time on their hands. And so calling people can be a really good way to get feedback. Or you can maybe set up a focus group. But the question I'm often asked is, how can we attract members? That's really a marketing question. What we really should be asking is, how will someone benefit from joining our organization? It's a subtle difference, but a very important difference because it's more member-centric. People have to have a reason to join. And if you can't solve a problem or fill a need for them, you can send all the emails you want and you can do all the marketing you want, and you won't grow your membership. So another thing to remember is, and I'm going on a little bit about this question because, like I said, it's the most common question we get, and there's a lot of facets to it. But one thing to remember is that you can't serve everyone. You know, 100 out of 1,000 retirees is typically a pretty good sense of membership. So who are you trying to serve? Are you trying to serve retirees that want to increase their social circle, that want intellectual development, that want to stay connected to campus? And plan your benefits around that. Now, as you grow and become larger, you can also develop branches of membership with activities geared toward your different ideal members. And Janette will talk a little bit more about that later as well. So what are the important tools for recruitment efforts? Your website. And I would recommend that if you haven't spent a lot of time on your website recently, that you find someone who's technologically savvy and bring your website up to date. You should have the benefits for joining up front, straight up, first thing people see. You should make sure that people have an easy way to contact you, and have graphics and make it visually interesting. E-newsletters are a great marketing tool, and for many of our organizations, they only send e-newsletters out to their members. To me, you're missing a key marketing tool if you do that. A lot of people think, well, the email should be for our members because that gives people a reason to join. And that is true, it does give people a reason to join, but sending that email newsletter out to non-members sometimes we'll incentivize them to join because they see how much fun you're having and they see how many interesting things you're doing. So I encourage people to expand and develop an email list of non-members as well as your members. And then lastly, important, I think, is personal outreach. Really, everybody on your board should be a membership committee member. It should not just be up to a small group of people. And last thing I'll say on this question, I'm really answering about 20 questions here, huh? Is joining is really the starting line. Engagement is the key and the key to retention. Engagement equals value plus belonging. Value is what you're offering to your members and serving a need or filling a need or solving a problem for them. And belonging is them feeling a part of the group. So I like to look at member engagement as a funnel this way, upside down funnel, or a pyramid. At the bottom is your non-members. And those people are the folks you need to build awareness with, possibly offer a freebie like your e-newsletter that I mentioned, or maybe a trial offer like we've done for AROHE. Next would be your new members. And it's really, really important with new members to have an onboarding and a welcome process, a committee that's a hospitality committee or a welcome committee, because the key is to offer them something that's of high value right away. There's a half-life on enthusiasm, and you have about 30 days to catch that person and have them stay involved with you and realize that they've done the right thing by joining. It's easy. So is it easy to get involved? Are people friendly and welcoming when they come to a meeting, et cetera, et cetera? Offer something that's a really good experience for those brand new members. Next on that pyramid is your involved member. That's the person that comes to a lot of your events. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but it's often from those involved members where you develop your volunteers, your committee members, and then your board members. So that's it on that first question, unless, well, Bill, there were any other follow-up questions that came in.
There was a comment from Arlene, and I'll just say that at Cal State San Marcos, they partnered with the HR department so that the HR department, upon questioning about retirement, would tell them about the Retirees Association. I'll let Arlene elaborate on that, but first, Al also had raised his hand, so I'm going to ask him to unmute.
One of our concerns is at UCLA, and I'm sure it's throughout the country, is the diversity issue. And how can we increase membership that has more diversity, which reflects what our campus is now? This is one of our greatest challenges. We have, I think, a rather good membership model, but we're not increasing the diversity as we would like.
Hold tight on that, Al, because we are going to be addressing that question. That's one that came in that you submitted earlier, so we will be getting to that one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Arlene, did you want to add anything?
No, the partnership with HR has worked out really well. We've gotten members that I haven't even heard about, didn't even know they worked on campus. So it's been great that we've gotten members through HR just by letting them be aware. And then one of the added benefits, staff in particularly lose their CSUSM email account, and some faculty members. So we worked with our IITS department, and we were able, if somebody joins the Retirees Association, they get to keep their email account as long as they keep it active. They have to put in, a forwarding out of office that they no longer work for campus. But this has been a great benefit that has kept people connected with the Retirees Association.
Excellent. And that's a great example, Arlene, of providing a benefit that's really useful to retirees. And we have a lot of our organizations that have worked with their IT departments to make sure that retirees can retain their email.
We had a note from NAU, excuse me, Northern Arizona University, saying they partnered with HR But then we also have a comment that says HR, and I don't know where. Marianne, where are you? Oh, okay, don't know which university. Oh, there you are.
Georgia State University, Perimeter College.
So let me go ahead and answer that, since that's a question that that comes up. Is, you know, sometimes HR departments are not as enthusiastic as we would like them to be. And I'm going to jump ahead and answer this question since it came up, Janette. So how can you reach retirees when you don't have access to their information, and how do you partner with people? Make friends at the HR department first. That, I think, is key. When I worked at Davis, UC Davis, we had a great relationship with our human resources department. When I moved to UCLA, it was a very different experience. We worked very separately. The two departments did not really connect with one another. And so I started not with asking for their help. I started offering to help them. Now, of course, it's different now with the pandemic. You may not be able to do all of these things right now, but you can start to develop relationships. So I offered to help with their check-in at registration at their retirement planning workshops. We hosted them for lunch once a quarter, just to chat about how we all serve retirees. We connected with them regularly just to see if we could help with anything. And then once you've established a relationship with them, then you can ask for help. I also took them cookies at the holidays. Some of the things HR can do is send a mailing on your behalf. With confidentiality laws, independent retiree associations cannot have access to retiree email addresses, so it's very challenging. Can't have access to any of their contact information. But if you make friends in HR, you can ask them to send a mailing on your behalf. So maybe you put the letter together, your brochure, you put it in the envelope, and then someone in their department, maybe even just a student, can slap labels on it and send it out for you. It's harder to tell a friend no. So, so try to build the relationship first before you ask for help. And then you may also, once they do that, they may be able to then hand out your brochures, which someone already mentioned. So you know who at HR probably, or you can find out who meets with potential retirees. And maybe it doesn't happen centrally at HR, maybe it happens at individual departments. So possibly you'll have to reach out to multiple departments to see who consults with people as they're getting ready to retire. Let them know about your organization and ask them if they could hand out brochures. You can also ask recent retirees to reach out to people they know that are new retirees to join the association. Last thing we did with several departments on campus was to staff informational tables at campus-wide events, such as benefits fairs, wellness fairs, travel fairs. We handed out something useful, which at UC was a table about how the pension is calculated. Everybody wanted that table. So if there's something useful at your campus that retirees would really be interested in, have something to give them, and then collect email addresses for a drawing. Do some kind of a drawing for a gift card or something, so that you start to get email addresses from people before they retire. Okay, that's it on that one.
We have a question from Kathleen.
I was just going to comment that we do work well with our HR department, excuse me, but there's still plenty of doors, and you've mentioned several things that I think we can do to expand that.
Great.
Well, so you began to, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's Aisha. I just want to add what, we're just following in suit with what Sue did about going to HR events. What's really been helpful is we have some minor like collateral items when we do these tabling events, so that they're always drawn to free things. And the one thing that we did that was small was just a Post-it with our logo embossed on it, because when people are walking around to the benefits, they might want to jot down a note. So we gave out pens and Post-it so that people just kind of always see us because they need a pen and a Post-it.
Great idea.
Well, Sue, you sort of began this question, but a specific one was sent to us on how do you attract newer usually younger retirees.
And I'll take that one, but Sue has given you a lot of really, really great ideas already, and that applies to your newbies, the newly retired and that kind of thing. At USC, we do inroads not only with the HR, and ours did not like us very much in the beginning either. So there was work to do there to make friends, but we also participate in staff assembly, which is the governing body of the staff, and also try to get a few inroads with the academic senate, which is the leadership of the faculty. So we are there early on. In addition, the staff retirement association itself offers memberships to those that are not yet retired. And some of the faculty like to join in because they're so fun. They're fun because they always host twice a year something on campus where you get a free lunch, a free little boxed lunch, and then you get someone from your campus to give a mini tour or talk about the history or show a new building, give a tour of a new building or those kinds of things. So doing outreach to your administrators already on campus, make friends with them, invite them to speak. Then they get to know you better, then they know about you, then they refer people to you. So that in itself is really good. We're also trying to we call it a cohort or a little mini group, so that when people are retiring at the same time, and we have separated between faculty and staff to do these little conversation groups. And then you find out, they get to know one another, and that increases the value. Faculty in particular, but staff too, realize, you know what, I never knew someone from biological science. I'm in art. And so that interdisciplinary connection of getting to know people from your university is, and maybe other departments can't do that, but you can do that because you're bringing people together that are from all these different places. The other thing that is really helpful is if you find out what they're interested in, you can get them hooked early. We had a newly retired faculty that really wanted to contribute in the neighborhood, and she was an art instructor. She wanted to do art for kids, but then she realized that the local high school students weren't even getting prepared for college. So she organized volunteers to come together with Volunteers of America to offer these little mini workshops to local high school students on how to write their personal statements to get into college. And then brought in local students from our university that grew up in the neighborhood, and the students themselves connected with these high schoolers and started talking. So the interest, when you find the interest and the passion of someone early on and engage them for those kinds of things, that's really helpful. It's also helpful to know that when people are retired, sometimes they're not going to connect with you for a full year. They're trying to figure out what in the heck, what is this all about? I'm going to clean out my garage, and then they never clean out their garage or their closets, and then they want to be engaged. So as Sue said, finding those valuable connections and the value and the belonging together, you know, again, that's a universal truth for the younger and newer retirees. And then I would agree with Sue with all of the other things she was saying about reaching out to them, hospitality. If somebody happens to show up, you follow up with them. You get your board members to target different people and make sure that they feel welcome, and have someone on them that will call them up or, you know, invite them to make sure that they feel welcome.
Great. I'll just add, Janette, if it's okay, one thing we found incredibly popular with new retirees is travel and day trips. Of course, those aren't happening now, but some of our organizations, particularly UCLA, has a travel group that the first meeting attracted 70 people, mostly new retirees. And now that they can't travel in person, they've done, when we were still traveling, they did a couple of cruises together, had 20, 25, 30 people on each trip. And then now they're doing virtual armchair travel programs. And I participated in the last one, had 70 people online on Zoom, watching a video that one of the retirees made of his trips. So that's something that really attracts new retirees. And I see Jerry just made a comment in the chat. Outside events such as walks, hikes, and bike rides also are incredibly popular with new retirees. More active events are good with new retirees.
Howard also sent a chat saying that they rely on donations and nominal fees for luncheons. They don't collect dues. So any suggestions beyond appealing to members for funds would be appreciated. So if you have comments on that.
I was very successful in reaching out to sponsors, business sponsors, particularly retirement communities who our retirees are the audience that they want to reach. And so we had a couple of retirement communities, both in Davis. I had 4 different communities I worked with. They would sponsor the food at events because food was something they really like to showcase for themselves. They would allow us to use free rooms at their communities for meetings. And at UCLA, for example, there's a retirement community that was developed in partnership with UCLA, and they give $10,000 a year to their retiree organizations. It was an agreement that was made when the community was built. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to get business partnerships. You just want to be careful. You don't give away your email list. You let them have access, maybe with a table at your events, maybe with a shout out in an email. Maybe they can write articles for your newsletter, things like that. But it can be a win-win for organizations and for the retirement communities. And not just retirement communities. That's just who I worked with because they were easy. They were eager to partner.
We have a comment, a question, and let's see. No? Okay.
The other one other thing, because you mentioned collecting money at events, we always invited non-member retirees to events, but we charged them a non-member fee. And the non-member fee was always higher than the cost to join. So if we had an event that was $70 for members, we would charge $90 for non-members, but to join for the year was $15. So those are just numbers I'm throwing off the top of my head. So that it really incentivized people to join if they wanted to come to an event.
At University of Missouri in Kansas City, the Emeritus College, we start early with the new coming faculty. We have an agreement with those who are welcoming new faculty to the campus that the whole group should come to the Emeritus College. We have a very nice outfit, and we really try to befriend the new faculty members, the young ones. And we kind of said, you're coming to a very, very good institution. There is life even after retirement. Just see to that you work hard and become emeritus, and then come and join us and continue to have fun at this institution.
Great idea.
We have a free lunch or free afternoon snacks when they come, dependent how it fits into their touring schedule.
Wonderful.
I don't know if you covered thoroughly enough so already, but there was a question about the diversity of our membership and what can we do to increase that diversity?
Why don't you go ahead and take that one, Janette?
Yeah, I can take that one too. One of the things that we need to remember as a little bit of a background, in many of our institutions, the retirees, many of them are not that diverse yet. That's one of the things that we've encountered at our university. And also those that are diverse, those that are faculty and staff of color. Some of them have been the poster child for diversity. So being sensitive to that is to keep that in mind. People want to be recognized for who they are, for the research, for the work that they've done, for the kind of person that they are, not necessarily for the color of their skin. So I just wanted to start with that. What we have done at our university is we have a scholarship through our faculty association, but also our staff association contributes for first generation students. And typically those students are students of color. And so we identify administrators on campus and faculty on campus that really care about some of these students, and we invite them to come to our lunches, and we invite them to come speak. Recently, for some of our Zoom sessions, we've invited the administrators for our Black Alumni Association, and we've invited those that were over the cultural groups through student affairs that deal with the students. We also identify those faculty and staff members who have been spokespersons and very much involved in our diversity events, and we connect with them. And so the more they know about our Emeriti Center, which we tout as colleagues for life, intergenerational, interdisciplinary, and multicultural, the more we are engaging faculty and staff that know who we are and are more friendly with us. We also invite our friends and our colleagues and ask them, do you know anybody that's recently retired that would like to join us, and what's their, where did they work, or what are they most interested in? And then we engage them on something other than just the diversity point of view. So we had a wonderful faculty member who was helping students get into HBCs. And so we engaged him to help with our scholarship, and he got to know a lot of the students, and then he invited some of his colleagues to help. So it's tapping into that interest that is really important. Our center also does participate in diversity events that we have, and but what I would say is one-on-one invitations, find out how make friends, and then ask their opinion. We really want to make people feel welcome. How do we do that? And get their opinion, and then actually act on what their suggestions are. And I'm sure that there may be others of you that have maybe stories that can be helpful. But those are the things that we are doing at USC. We're really very much into diversity and appreciating different points of view. And we do intergenerational conversations, and we've even had students run Zoom sessions for our center about the whole movement about Black Lives Matter, for example, which has been very powerful and respectful, and had multiple generations with different points of view, which has really been interesting.
Thank you, Janette. This question's a little off topic, and Sue, I think you may want to address it in another way, but Patricia is curious about how many of the people attending today actually have a physical center, a literal center, and how many of us have paid staff?
I don't know the exact, because I haven't printed out the participants for today, but I can tell you that at least 75% of AROHE members are membership organizations that do not have paid staff, or they would just maybe have a part-time, very minimal paid staff. And we do recognize that that makes a big difference in what you can offer and what you can do. And so we throw out a lot of ideas. If you don't have paid staff, all of them may not be applicable to you. I just say find the ones that rise to the top. And we will probably be doing a webinar later for those who wish to establish a emeriti center or a retiree center, because right now the climate on campuses is, you're probably not going to get funding for that, I would say, in most cases. But now's the time to build your alliances and to make yourselves useful as you can on your campuses, because that's how you eventually get funding for a center or an emeriti college if you want one. And not all organizations want one, but if you have paid staff and or a physical center, you can provide a lot more offerings. You can with a paid staff person or 2 or 3 paid staff person, which some of our organizations have.
And if I may interject, the Emeriti Center it has a little tiny physical space now. It used to have a large space and it used to have staff. 5 years ago, we were downsized and we were moved into a tiny little space. However, with the Academic Senate, which has really been helpful, but our center for retirees is entirely run by students and me. And it has been a real exciting endeavor. And so if there is a way that you might be able to secure either a volunteer student or a paid student to help you, I would highly recommend doing that, either partnering with another association on campus or a club or something like that. More and more, and here's a hook. Here's the hook. At your college and university, more and more students not only need experiential learning and internships, but they need to have experience communicating with older adults, because there's so many of us in the world. And so the more experience they get with helping associations that they can put on their resume, and the more experience that they can get with intergenerational communications, maybe helping us with Zoom sessions, maybe helping us with panels. It is really a co-creation of learning between students and older adults, which is absolutely wonderful. So that is one way that you might be able to reach out. And then also take a look at your college or university's websites and do a search to see if there are any student groups that are focused on working with older adults. So we have mindful aging, we have gerotech, we have a student group that wants to help train students in technology, your engineering students, your IT students, your computer science students, your social work students, your psychology students, your, all these different majors. We work with physical therapy students, occupational therapy students, social work, pharmacy, and health sciences. And they do wonderful things with us and have partnerships that we don't pay for. So I would encourage you to do that.
And I'll just add, Janette, we've talked a lot about creating partnerships across campus. I really think that's key for retiree organizations to be able to do the work that you want to do. Sometimes we get focused on just our retirees and forget about there's a whole campus community there that can provide great win-win partnerships for you. And one of the things that both UC Davis and UCLA have done, their retiree boards have started asking campus administrators to visit them at their board meetings. I imagine now they're doing that virtually. They were doing it in person, of course, when I was there. And just don't ask for help at those conversations. Find out what that department is doing, in what ways could retirees partner with them, in what ways could the organization partner with them. And that has been an incredible way to develop some win-win projects across those two campuses.
I would definitely say that. And also we do Zoom sessions now, but we did in person partnership with, for example, physical therapy, and the faculty and the staff, the faculty and their graduate students put on these workshops, but we did not have them just for the retirees. We invited, and we always invite, our faculty, staff, students, alumni, and the community to join us. So sometimes we have random community members that come in. Some faculty members say, you get extra credit if you go to these lectures or you go to these workshops. But it's giving experience to our students. And many of our non-retired faculty and staff get to know us better because we are partnering with these different schools and units, and it's open to everyone. That's another way to get your younger, not, pre-retirees to join you. And we keep saying over and over and over how strong it is to be intergenerational. And you can also say to your folks that you can be one of the only places where you are intergenerational, interdisciplinary, and multicultural. Other schools and units can't do that, but you can, because you have different disciplines and you have faculty and staff, many of you, that have the great expertise to offer too. So I would leverage that.
And one more example, I think, or one more advantage of doing that type of thing is that then you don't have to create all the programs, especially for those who don't have paid staff. You can find programs on campus and include the retirees in those programs that someone else is doing all the planning for. We've been very successful of doing that, partnering with our work-life program on health and wellness programs, partnering with campus recreation on an adult fitness program for retirees, partnering with our staff assembly on noontime talks for people who are considering retirement, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, every campus is going to be a little bit different, but you can expand the breadth of your offerings without a lot more effort by doing by establishing those kind of partnerships.
And you can also go to either or the Alumni Association and your advancement development team, because when they are highlighting your university or your individual units or schools or disciplines, if they invite retired faculty and staff, they may get a donor or two. Mm-hmm. And they are, many of our faculty and staff donate to the local classical music station and all these different things. So you have a population that they would love to tap into. So have them do freebies for you or invite you to some of these big events.
Jerry from UC Irvine mentioned that they had a partnership to get student assistants that produced their secure database for their organization. So that was good. Excellent. And Al from UCLA said, look for internship opportunities, particularly from social work, gerontology, and education. So those were good. Yeah. Our next question, I'm going to move us along a little bit. Our next question is near and dear to my heart, having left as dean of the Emeritus College a year ago. What are the best ways to find new leaders for our organizations?
Well, after the membership question, that is always the biggest challenge among all associations, including AROHE. How do we find leaders for our organizations? And just as I said, there's a membership pyramid or a membership upside down funnel. There's also a leadership pyramid. I think the most important thing to remember is that if you can, and this takes extra effort, don't start with trying to recruit people to your board directly. Start with the bottom of the pyramid. Who comes to your events regularly? Those are your members who are the most engaged, because we may have a large membership database, but the ones that actually come to the events on a regular basis are typically a much smaller core group. from those, and you may have others as well, but those are your prime target audience. Try to then recruit volunteers for one-time events, short-term projects, a short-term task force, etc., so that they get a feel for a leadership role in your organization that's not a huge time commitment. And from that, you can then identify those people that are the most interested and maybe get them involved on a regular ongoing committee. And often then from our committees is where we can recruit our board members. What happens so often, and that's actually happened to me at AROHE, I went to one conference and the next thing I knew I was the president. I didn't know much about AROHE. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I hear this often from our organizations and from people. I stepped out to go to the bathroom, and when I came back, I was nominated as president-elect. And that can work. It can, but it is much better if you can build that leadership pyramid. And it is work to do that. It's often easier to do the work yourself and to get board members to be the committee members because they know the most, and it's easier to do it yourself than to oversee people that don't know as much about the organization. But for the long-term viability of your leadership development, it's really important that you do that. So it might be that you identify specific retirees that you know have a specific skill set and reach out to help with a short-term project. It's also a good idea to develop statements for what your committees do, what the time commitment is, and or projects, what the time commitment will be, and send that information out. Sometimes we do get some people interested that have never come to an event, but we send out an email about the volunteer opportunities we have. Here's the time commitment. Here's how long this should last and how many hours a week. And here's what you would do. And here's the skills we need. And we get some great people coming in that we were not aware of before, but do be kind of specific about what you're looking for. And a lot of times organizations struggle with getting particularly a president. And that is a big responsibility to be the president. So sometimes I suggest if you can't find a single person, look for co-chairs or co-presidents or co-committee chairs if a single person can't be found. And that can be a way to ease people in without them feeling like they don't have the whole responsibility. Okay.
Thank you. This next question, people were making some other comments, but I see that they're going to everyone. So if you look in your chats, you'll be able to see those comments. The next question was actually raised early on here in a chat, but we also received this question beforehand. And that is, how do we stay viable during the pandemic, particularly budgets and the like?
Oh, that would, I'll take a shot at that, but I'm going to look to Sue and for many of you for other contributions. We tried to reach out to see if we could be helpful. And again, I relied on my students, to be honest. Being viable meant we had to use Zoom. And we had many of our retirees that did not know how to use Zoom. And so on our website, and we did this, we started with our students, and we tried to do an intergenerational Zoom session every week. And I had lots of, I had one student that knew how to do it. I had learned how to do it myself. And so what we did is we sent out an email and we said, do you want to learn how to use Zoom? And we created, our own resources, our links and all of that, which you can find on Zoom with the little mini, videos and all of that kind of thing. And slowly we recruited student volunteers to call retirees on the phone and say, are you having trouble with this or that? And so the students were then going, making phone calls and getting online and helping out. We also reached out to our IT department, and some of those were helpful also to help more and more people learn how to use Zoom. And that's also when we invited various speakers So we have different speakers that are coming in. We have discussion groups. We did what I believe UCLA had a pet show. Oh, and they just came online and showed their pets. And Sue has some more creative things that she did as well. We don't have very many retirees that have expertise in IT. So I had to heavily rely on students, and we made mistakes, but we laughed about it. And we actually did some of these intergenerational discussions online. And I can tell you the two things when we did polling that our retirees wanted, and some of those that joined faculty and staff, the two things that they really cared about. One, the top one was having an intergenerational conversation. And that was messy, and having a moderator and not even knowing how to do stuff. But we did it anyway. And we just said, you know what? We don't know exactly what we're doing, but we're going to be respectful and we're going to have fun with it. And we always did. And more people would come. The other thing we did is we created a Trojan, Trojans are, that's our sort of like our nickname, Trojan Connections. And we went online and we partnered with Student Affairs, and we said, we're going to do this calling program. And it was just a phone call. It started out as a phone call. Now, this wasn't our idea. Again, this was Aisha at UCLA. And we created a little form where people could sign up, and we had a student matching people. And it was students that wanted to talk to older adults, and older adults that wanted to talk to older adults. And they would call each other on the phone. We probably have close to 200 people now that are doing this. And some of it works out and some of it doesn't work out. But it's a way for people to keep in touch. Another thing we did is we partnered with the School of Pharmacy, and the doctoral students in pharmacy were getting on the phone or Zoom and trying to help retirees pick their Medicare D plans. But they were so touched by the people that they were connecting with that they decided to do a Thinking of You project. And these students started sending out little notes to our widows and widowers. So, you know, we also connected with the local community and asked how we could help. So every once in a while we could find a couple of volunteers in the right discipline that could maybe help in the community. So like Sue, we just take whatever opportunities, whatever we hear, whatever email we have, we follow up and see if there's a connection somewhere, somehow, to see if it's helpful. We were also doing potluck food for our students on campus, and it turned into a big program where we had 180 students show up just before COVID for food. And then there was COVID and we couldn't do it anymore. And so our retirees wanted to know how they could help. So there's a food pantry. So some of our retirees started donating to the food pantry. So there, you know, it's different at every school, but just finding out how you can help and engage people because they want to help, they're stuck at home. So those are some of the things that we did.
And I would just add that staying viable during the pandemic, many of our organizations are finding that they're reaching out to their retirees more, and they're reaching more retirees because people no longer have to be able to park on campus and be within a short drive. So there are some advantages to the Zoom platform. And one of the things that retirees are really missing, I think all of us are really missing, is the social connections. So learning to use Zoom breakout rooms, which we did a workshop for last week, and we're doing another one this Friday. If you haven't already registered and you want to learn how to use Zoom breakout rooms, those can really enhance your virtual events so that people feel more engaged and more connected by being able to connect informally in smaller groups. It's a little more challenging in the virtual world, but it can be done.
Actually, we at University of Missouri in Kansas City, we had our annual dinner last night on Zoom.
Oh,
And
nice.
One of our members, Jacob Waterborg, is really into this with IT. And he had organized different tables, and we changed the membership in the tables, and there were quizzes, and we tried to have something nice as a background decoration. And our speaker was fabulous, and we just had a great fun. It didn't work all the time. There were glitches here and there, and we all laughed and said, this is the way to go.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Okay, people are sending some information on sites they've set up that it's going out in the chat to everyone. And I think that'll be available to you later.
Yeah, we'll send that out. So you don't have to copy down things you see in the chat. We can print that, not print it out, but we can save it as a PDF and send it to you.
And also, Sue, do we have a recording
We do.
of an AROHE webinar on what to do in the pandemic?
We have a couple of webinars that we did in the last few months. One is focusing on virtual events, and one is focusing on communicating with your retirees. And I had sent the links out to those in the reminder, but I'll send it again in our follow-up email. And I suggest you watch those webinars if you haven't already.
And that leads us to the next question or two. I'll sort of ask them together.
Okay.
How do we best communicate with retirees, with members, and how often can we offer too many communications, too many events? So I'll let you two roll with that one.
Okay. Well, right now, of course, probably most of our communication is happening electronically. Some organizations still have printed newsletters and find that important, especially for their retirees who are not don't have computers. I mean, we have, among our retirees, we have 3 generations of people from age 60 to age 90 and above. So thinking about how you communicate with all of those different folks can be a little challenging. So most folks are relying on electronic, and some still doing print as well. There's really 2 audiences you need to think about communicating with, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. One is your current members, and one is your potential members. And sometimes you can send the same communication out, and sometimes that's 2 different things. So one of the things to, I think, be aware of when we talk about any kind of communicating is, what do people know about your organization? One, does your board know your mission statement? Can everyone on your board say what your mission statement is? If you have a longer mission statement, do you have a tagline? And does everyone on your board know your tagline? And what I mean by a tagline is a short phrase. The UCLA Retirees Association, for example, uses the phrase, "We're working to make your retirement work for you." USC Emeriti Center and others have adopted this, uses the phrase, "Colleagues for life." So you don't have to know your whole long mission statement, all your values and everything, but everyone on your board should be able to say in a few words what your organization does, so that when you're communicating with people, you have a very clear message. That message should be on your website. Your tagline could be on every email communication that you send out. And it just goes a long ways toward people understanding what your organization is, because for many of our organizations, awareness of our organization is our biggest issue. Because our campuses in many ways are so broad and diverse and large, the Retiree Association is just a very small part of that. So as many ways as you can get out that word, the better off you'll be. And building awareness, as we said, not just with members, but with potential members. So, some things you might think about doing are, Janette mentioned this earlier, opening up your events to everyone on campus or in the community. I have a great example for this from UC Davis. They do monthly talks. They used to be in person. Of course, now they're virtual. And when they were still in person, they were educational talks over lunch. They started inviting the entire campus through the Campus newsletter to come to those talks because they were during the noon hour. And we had a room that was big enough. We had 175 people at one of those events. More than half were not retirees. Those kinds of things are great ways to communicate what your organization is about. And one in particular, we had done a talk on, a child development specialist did a talk entitled Why Babies Are So Human. So talking about early childhood development. We sent out the announcement to the whole campus community. Well, the breastfeeding mothers group picked that up, and we had an entire group at that talk of young mothers, some of whom brought their babies. And it ended up being this wonderful, as Janette mentioned, intergenerational event where people find out about your association. They don't have to be retired to participate. So as long as you have a room that's big enough, that kind of thing is communicating your message. And then mostly we're doing e-announcements. Announcements can be sent monthly, bi-monthly, weekly. It depends on the size of your organization and how many events you're doing. One of the things I did in our e-newsletters that I used to send out where I always had something for people that didn't come to events, because you always have a large number of retirees who events just aren't their thing. You know, they join the organization for other reasons. So we would have resource information about resources in the community that they might be interested in, or community events that they might want to go to, or the latest developments on campus that they might be interested in, a new building that opened or a new lab that is doing great research, something like that. So think about what it is you want to communicate to your members. You don't want to spam them, but you do want to keep in touch with relevant information and build that non-member email list. Anything else follow up on that, Bill?
No, I've been getting some comments, but they're going to everyone in the chat, and they're
Okay.
really comments, so we can move on.
Okay.
Janette, anything to add regarding events and how many to offer? And do people lose interest?
Yes, I would say that I'm a culprit. I send out too many emails sometimes because I am not as organized as I could be. We get some, we like to broadcast anything really interesting that's coming up, and a lot of times it's last minute. So I would say that I do sometimes overly send email, and I shouldn't. Being more organized and sending out like what Sue has done, what Jerry has done at UCI, and what Aisha has done at UCLA. You know, every 2 weeks or once a month comes out the newsletter. For us, we send it out too many. You know, we send out a newsletter every other month because I don't have enough staff, and the students are busy right now, so they're all, you know, working on their final exams. So I just do the best I can. I think probably sending out a little bit more communication than too little. I guess I would more make an error in that direction, because you want people to feel that they belong and they're connected. So sending out really important university events, you know, information, for the most part, especially during COVID, it makes them feel more connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in terms of events, I think you can do too many events. I think one of the keys is to do a variety of events, because you will find that different types of events appeal to different constituents in your membership. So you may have some people that really almost always only come to the educational programs. You have other people that aren't as interested in that, but they love the social programs and a chance to share their pet or to learn how to make a cocktail and to interact people informally is really more appealing to them. Or watching an armchair travel program is really more appealing to them. So I would say, instead of looking at just doing more events, look at increasing the variety of the events you offer to appeal to different constituencies.
And wellness events.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of wellness events seem to be really, people love them. And there's all different kinds of wellness events too. So they don't all have to be just around heart health or brain health or occupational therapy, physical therapy, sleep, those kinds of things. And I did provide my email, my our website, just so that you can see the topics that you might be able to do outreach to maybe some of your academic units where they could do something for you.
Okay.
We had, Sue, I know I don't want to pinch you on your closing remarks,
Right.
but we had a question regarding, and we had budgets and what do you do in the pandemic, and people aren't stopping in. So what's the best way to take online contributions and payments, for example?
It's a little tougher during the pandemic, of course, because you have to do everything electronically. Unless you were already set up to do that, you should probably find someone who's technologically savvy to help you set that up. So you can set up PayPal payments. If you're doing just collecting money for events, you can use Eventbrite. Then there's other event types of software. All of these are going to cost money. So you have to factor the cost in with your event price to make sure that you're charging enough for your events. A lot of times, though, you can also partner with departments on campus. You can't always do that, I would say, but it does happen. So like, for example, at UC Davis, when we were trying to figure out how to collect money for our events, we ended up being able to partner with our alumni association that collected money for their events all the time. And they were willing to let us put a few events into their system and then just give us the money after the fact, because we had made friends with them and because we had a win-win relationship with them already. That's probably not something you're going to be able to do right off the bat with a department, but if you have developed relationships, you might be able to reach out to them to see if they could help you with that. In terms of going a little beyond that, if you wanted then to use a online platform for member management, event management, and database management, there are some companies that focus on small organizations. AROHE uses, it's a funny name, but it's Wild Apricot is the name of the company, and UCLA's Retirees Association, I believe, is still using Wild Apricot. Alan's nodding, I see. There's also a platform called MemberClicks, and there are others that are geared towards small organizations. Again, they all have a cost, and you have to have somebody on your board or a technologically sound committee or something like that to oversee it, and it can be a learning curve, but it can really help you to manage your membership and your online payments.
Janette, you want to, I see your chat comment, but would you like to say that out loud so everyone can hear?
Okay, so early on, some of our retirees encouraged our associations to create gift accounts within our university so that people could donate to the university, but it would go to our Staff Retirement Association or our Retired Faculty Association or our Emeriti Center, so that when people donate, they get a credit for donating to the university, but the money goes there. But the problem with that, though, is you have to use university vendors to spend that money, and the staff, the RFA and the SRA have to go through me to get approval to get that money to go out. So if you don't want to get involved in something like that, I wouldn't say do that. But so people can donate with a credit card to the university, get tax credit, and then it goes into these accounts. So we don't do, but our Staff Retirement Association, they have a credit union account and a checking account. And so luckily for me, I've got one student and myself, we live close to campus and we collect checks, and we're still doing that kind of stuff, which is a royal pain in the neck. It's really time consuming and I just shake my head.
So we have just a couple of minutes left in our appointed time here. So I just want to close. Someone asked a question about the advantages of joining AROHE. So I just want to mention a few of those. For those of you who are trial members right now and who are wondering whether it's worth it to join, one is the networking opportunities that you have. We have a member directory on our website that you can search by region or by type of organization. If you want to reach out to other members, for example, who have developed emeriti centers and get some help with doing that, you can do that. We have these webinars, which were new last year and we were kind of forced to do with the pandemic, but I think have been a great way for us to keep in touch with members. We have what we call our AROHE briefs on our website, which in our last newsletter, we sent a link to that. I'll also send a link in my follow-up email today. These are compact documents, maybe anywhere from 3 to 10 pages that talk about particular topics of interest to retiree organizations. And those are developed by our Research and Education Committee. We do have a discussion forum that you have to subscribe to in order to reach out and ask questions of other AROHE members. I'll send the link to that in our follow-up email today. We have our conference, which of course usually is in person, but this year we have recently made the decision to hold that virtual in October of 2021. So you'll be getting more information about that. And then for those who really want to have more intense one-on-one help, we offer consulting services for a fee. I'm right now consulting with New York University. Their provost department is establishing an emeritus society. And so their department is paying for me to consult with them to help them get that set up. So those are all options that you have when you join AROHE. For me, and I think other AROHE members will stay the same. When I first took on my job managing the Retiree Center at UC Davis, I had no experience doing this. So AROHE was a really valuable resource. And before my time, the retirees who had worked really for 6 years to establish and get funding from the university to establish a retiree center, if they had not had AROHE resources to help them, they would never have established a retiree center that was staffed with professional staff. So I think AROHE can be helpful in many, many ways, depending on what your organization's looking for.
And if I could interject, Sue, you know, I inherited AROHE and I didn't know what I was doing, 15 years ago or whatever. But I was part of a retiree organization that was well established. I ended up with so many good resources. There are the resources for surveys and all kinds of things that are there that you can pick from to help you no matter what age or stage you are in your association. And I was a big university, had more resources than a lot of people. And some of the networking contacts that I connected with at AROHE helped me be a better administrator, and I learned some really creative techniques from great people who had not even started their associations yet. So I can't say enough about the networking and the helpful way that people connect with one another. You can bounce ideas off of folks and they're always willing to help. Talk about belonging. You know, even when I retire, I'm going to still be a part of AROHE because I still believe so much in these wonderful people and the resources that have been developed since 2002. Sorry, you didn't pay me. I'm very enthusiastic about AROHE.
Along that line, earlier, Jane Wolfson had asked, do we have a list? Does AROHE have a list of the various organizations that are members of AROHE, what the type is, do they have paid staff or not? Is that available?
We don't track whether they have paid staff or not, but our membership directory, as I mentioned, if you go to our website, there's a tab at the top that says member directory, or maybe it's just directory. You can search that by type of organization, as I mentioned, by region. Now, one thing about that list is it includes all of the bundle members that are within an organization. So for example, the USC Emeriti Center might have 10 or 15 people associated with the center. So they'll all be listed individually in the directory. I think you can search for bundle administrators, which then will give you just the individual associations rather than every single person that's under an association in the directory.
Well, I want to thank you all for sending your chats and raising your hands. And I hope I didn't miss anyone, but all of the notes and the chats will be made available to you afterwards.
As well as the recording. We'll be putting this, it usually takes me a couple days to process the recording and get it up on our YouTube station, but I will send out an email when that's done so that you can watch the recording, or if you want to share the recording with your other board members, maybe even it's a delightful recording, I think, watch it at one of your board meetings so that everyone can see it at the same time and you could have a discussion about the ideas that you might want to try. All right. Thank you all very much, and we hope to see you at future events.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.